My family exploited me for 24 years in their business without paying me anything, while my lazy cousin was treated like royalty. When I came back and saved their company from bankruptcy, they planned to make him CEO over me. So I sold my 40% to a stranger, and now they're going bankrupt. I'm 34 years old, work in digital marketing for a tech company, and I basically spent most of my life being the unpaid slave of the family business, while my idiot cousin was treated like the next Steve Jobs without doing absolutely anything. The thing is, it took me way too long to realize I was being used, and when I finally figured it out and left, my family acted like I was the villain of the story. But you know what? I'm at peace with my decision, and I need to tell this because there are still people who ask me why I abandoned the family legacy, as if I'd committed some kind of betrayal. Let's start from the beginning. My grandfather started a barbecue restaurant chain back in the 60 seconds, and by the time I was born in the 90 seconds, they already had like 5 or 6 locations running well. It was one of those typical Southern family businesses, with the secret recipes passed down from generation to generation and all that stuff. My dad and my Uncle Frank, who's Tyler's father, I took over the business when my grandfather retired, and for as long as I can remember, they drilled into my head that someday I'd also be part of this, that it was my destiny or whatever. I was 10 years old, literally 10 years old, when I started working at the restaurant on weekends. At first it was like, oh, how cute, the kid is learning the family business. But the truth is they had me cleaning tables, washing dishes, sweeping the floor, carrying boxes of supplies that weighed almost as much as I did. They didn't pay me anything, obviously, because I was family, and supposedly this was my education or something like that. My dad always said, someday all this will be yours. James, you need to learn from the bottom up. And I completely believed him because I was 10 years old and thought that's how things worked. What drove me crazy, even then, although I didn't fully understand it, was that Tyler never worked. Tyler is exactly my age. We were born 3 months apart, and that guy never set foot in a restaurant kitchen in his life except to eat for free. When I was there on Saturdays from 7 in the morning until 9 at night, Tyler was at his house playing video games. When I spent entire summers working without pay, Tyler was on vacation at the beach. And the worst part is that every time I asked, hey, why doesn't Tyler have to work? My dad or my uncle always had some excuse ready. That Tyler was more delicate, that he had allergies, that he needed to focus on his studies, pure nonsense. I spent my entire adolescence like that. 13 years old, 14, 15, 16, every weekend, every holiday, every damn summer I was at those restaurants. My friends were going out, going to the movies, to parties, doing normal teenage things, and I was frying potatoes or cleaning grills full of grease. They never paid me a cent. Not even a tip. Everything was part of my training, part of preparing me to eventually inherit the business. And meanwhile, Tyler, my cousin Tyler, who supposedly was also going to be part of this, did absolutely nothing, and everyone treated him like he was a prince. When it came time to go to college, I knew I wanted to study marketing. I liked the idea of creating strategies, of understanding how advertising worked, and I thought, okay, I can use this for the family business, but I also have options if things don't work out. I told my dad I wanted to go to State University, which had a good marketing program. And you know what he told me? He told me, why did I need a college degree if I already had a business waiting for me? That college was a waste of time and money. That what I needed to learn, I was already learning at the restaurants. I was 18 years old, and for the first time in my life, I said no to my dad. I told him I was going to go to college anyway, that I'd find a way to pay for it. He got furious, like really furious. He yelled at me that I was ungrateful, that after everything the family had done for me, I was abandoning them at the moment they needed me most, that my grandfather would be disappointed. My mom also got involved with the emotional drama, crying and saying I was killing her with worry. How could I do this to them? But you know what? I stood firm. I applied for student loans, got a part-time job at a Starbucks, got another job on weekends at an electronics store, and I paid for college myself. Those 4 years were really tough. I'm not going to lie. I worked like 30 or 35 hours a week, in addition to taking classes full-time, slept like 5 hours a night, lived basically on ramen and coffee, but I was free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't under my family's control. I didn't have to listen to their constant complaints and manipulations, and honestly, it was amazing. My family barely spoke to me during that time. My dad would call me every 2 or 3 months just to remind me I was making a mistake, that I was wasting my life, that when I graduated, I wasn't going to get anything and would have to come crawling back. My mom was more subtle, but just as manipulative, with her comments like, "Your cousin Tyler is working so hard in the business. Your dad is so proud of him. I wish you were here to see how he's growing." Wait, let me go back a second because this is important. After I left for college, my family finally gave Tyler a position in the business. He was 19 years old, and they put him as manager of one of the restaurants, not because he had worked there before or had experience, but literally because he was Uncle Frank's son. And according to what my mom told me in her guilt trip calls, Tyler was terrible at the job. He arrived late, left early, spent most of the time in the office on his phone. The staff hated him, but my dad and Uncle Frank treated him like he was a business genius. They created this fake position for him, like director of operations or something, with a probably ridiculous salary. While I was working, 2 jobs to pay rent on a shitty apartment, I shared with 3 people. I graduated at 22, almost 23, with a degree in marketing and 0 debts to my family, which was the best part of it all. I got a job at a digital marketing agency in the city, making like $45,000 a year, which wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. You know, money I earned for my own work. For the first time in my life, I felt like a normal person, with a normal job and a normal life. I went out with friends, had dates, went to the gym, did things that normal 23-year-olds do. I was happy, or at least I was on my way to being happy. But my family couldn't let it go. My mom's calls became more frequent, more insistent. "The business needs you. James, your dad is getting older. He can't handle everything alone. Tyler is doing his best, but needs help. Your grandfather's legacy is at stake. Imagine how he would feel if he knew you abandoned it." It was constant, incessant, and eventually, like an idiot, I started to feel guilty. I started to think, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I should at least try. Maybe I can use my marketing skills to help the family business, and that would be good for everyone. So, at 26, after 3 years working in marketing and building my own career, I went back to the family business. I told them I'd do it under certain conditions, that I wanted a real salary, a real title, and real authority to make changes in marketing and operations. My dad and Uncle Frank agreed to everything. They promised me this time would be different, that they would respect me as a professional, that they valued my education and experience. They offered me $60,000 a year as marketing director, which was more than I was making at the agency, and I thought, okay, maybe this can work. It was a disaster from day one. Every idea I proposed was rejected. I wanted to update the website that looked like it was from 1998. No, too expensive and not necessary. I wanted to start using social media to promote the restaurants. No, that's for kids. I wanted to create a loyalty program for frequent customers. No, too complicated. Literally everything I suggested, based on my education and professional experience, was dismissed because my dad and Uncle Frank thought they knew more than me. And meanwhile, Tyler, who now had the title of Vice President of Operations, or something equally ridiculous, could do whatever he wanted without question. The guy would arrive at 11 in the morning, leave at 3, spend all his time playing golf with suppliers, and everyone acted like he was a business genius. What really drove me crazy was a meeting like 3 months after I came back. We were discussing the drop in sales at one of the restaurants, and I presented a complete analysis I had done on demographic data of the area, competition, consumer trends, all backed up with numbers and graphs. I spent 2 weeks on that analysis. My dad looked at it for, like 30 seconds and said we didn't need complicated analysis, that the problem was that the restaurant manager wasn't working hard enough, and that Tyler had some excellent ideas on how to fix it. Tyler's ideas, which I heard for the first time in that meeting, just like everyone else, were literally to change the bathroom wallpaper and offer discounts on Tuesdays. That was it. And my dad and Uncle Frank acted like he had just solved world hunger. I lasted a year. A full year of being treated like a worthless employee while Tyler was adored for breathing. A year of seeing my professional ideas dismissed in favor of my cousin's stupid whims. A year of feeling exactly like when I was 10 years old, cleaning tables without pay. So I quit. I told them I was sorry, but this clearly wasn't working, that I was going back to digital marketing, that I wished them the best. My dad exploded, called me a coward, told me I was abandoning the family again, that I was a failure who would never achieve anything on my own. My mom cried and told me I was disappointing her. What was she going to tell people? Uncle Frank didn't even talk to me, just looked at me with contempt. Tyler, surprisingly, was the only one who didn't say anything, probably because it was convenient for him that I was leaving. I went back to digital marketing and rebuilt my career. I got a better job, making more money, working with people who actually valued my ideas and skills. My family gave me the silent treatment for months, which honestly was a relief. I thought I was finally done with all that drama, that I could move on with my life and let them do whatever they wanted with their business. And then 2020 came. The pandemic destroyed their business. The barbecue restaurants that depended completely on customers eating on site, without any online ordering system, without delivery, and without absolutely any digital presence, because they had rejected all those ideas when I suggested them, basically became obsolete overnight. They had to permanently close 3 of the 6 locations. The other 3 were barely surviving, doing takeout handled completely by phone because they didn't even have an online ordering system. They were losing money every month. Tyler, the supposed operations genius, had no idea what to do. My dad and Uncle Frank went into total panic. And then, surprise, surprise, they called me. My mom called first, crying, saying the business was on the verge of bankruptcy, that they were going to lose everything, that please, please, please help them. Then my dad called, and for the first time in my life, I heard him sound defeated. He told me they had made mistakes, that they should have listened to me, that they desperately needed me. Uncle Frank even sent me an email, which was surprising because that man barely knows how to use a computer, asking me to please consider coming back to save my grandfather's legacy. I was working from home during the pandemic, making like $80,000 a year at that point, comfortable and successful. I didn't need their drama. But you know what? There was something in me, something stupid and optimistic, that thought, maybe now they finally learned their lesson. Maybe now they'll finally respect and value me. Maybe this is my chance to really do something meaningful with the family business. So I told them I'd come back, but only on my terms. I wanted 40% ownership of the business, complete operational control, a salary of $90,000 a year, and final authority over all marketing and digital strategy decisions. Basically, I told them, either give me real power or I'm not coming back. They were so desperate they agreed. In 2021, I came back to the business with 40% ownership. Dad and Uncle Frank had 30% each, and Tyler had nothing because they had never given him real ownership, just titles and salary. My first action was to fire Tyler. I know, it sounds harsh, but that guy was a total burden. He didn't do anything useful. The staff hated him, and he was collecting an absurd salary for basically playing golf and pretending to work. My dad and Uncle Frank complained, but I reminded them I had complete operational control, and if they wanted me to save the business, Tyler had to go. Uncle Frank didn't talk to me for months after that, but honestly, I didn't care. The next 2 years were probably the hardest of my professional life. I basically rebuilt the business from scratch. I hired a web development company to create a modern website with a complete online ordering system. I set up accounts on all the delivery platforms, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, all of them. I created social media profiles and started posting content regularly. Photos of the food, videos of the cooking process, family stories, all that content people love. I implemented a digital loyalty program that rewarded frequent customers. I renegotiated contracts with suppliers. I reorganized the staff. I updated the menus. Basically, I completely modernized a business that had been operating the same way since the 80 seconds. And it worked. It really worked. By the end of 2022, we weren't just breaking even, we were being profitable again. Online sales represented almost 40% of our revenue. We had thousands of followers on social media. The loyalty program had like 5,000 active members. Customers were happy, staff was happy, the numbers were improving every quarter. I was working like 70 hours a week. I was physically and mentally exhausted, but I was proud. I had taken a dying business and saved it. I thought I had finally proven my worth, that finally my family would see me as something more than free labor. Early 2023, like 8 months ago from now, I discovered by chance that my dad and Uncle Frank had been having secret meetings with Tyler about eventually bringing him back as CEO. CEO of the business I had saved, of the business where I had 40% ownership and had done all the heavy lifting of modernization. They were literally planning to put him above me after I fired him, after I proved I could run the business successfully without him. I found out because one of the managers who was loyal to me mentioned that Tyler had been coming to one of the restaurants talking to staff about changes he was going to implement when he came back in charge. I confronted my dad immediately. I asked him directly if they were planning to bring Tyler back as CEO. And you know what he told me? He honestly told me they thought it would be better to have someone from the family in that role. I said, "Dad, I'm family. I have 40% of this business. I saved it when it was dying." And he said, "No. I mean someone who really understands the family business, someone who grew up in it. And Tyler is your Uncle Frank's son, so it makes sense." I was like, "You're joking, right? I worked in this business since I was 10 years old without pay. I graduated from college with a marketing degree. I brought this business back from the dead. And Tyler, who never did anything, is the one who really understands the family business." My dad got angry and told me I was being dramatic, that Tyler had matured a lot, that he deserved a second chance, that family is important and we needed to keep the peace. My mom, when I complained to her later, told me I was being selfish, that not everything is about me, that I should think about what's best for the whole family. And at that moment, after 34 years, I finally got it. For them, I was never going to be enough. It didn't matter how much I worked, how much I achieved, how much I sacrificed. I was always going to be less than Tyler. I was always going to be the labor, never the leader. I was always going to be the one who does the hard work, so Tyler gets the credit. So I did something I should have done 20 years ago. I quit. But this time, I didn't just quit the job. I sold my 40% ownership. I hired a lawyer, did an independent valuation of the business, and sold my stake to an outside investor for quite a bit more money than I expected, enough to completely pay off my apartment and have a considerable savings fund. My dad and Uncle Frank got furious, threatened to sue me, said I was destroying the business by bringing in a stranger, that grandfather would be rolling in his grave. I told them they had 20 years to treat me with respect and chose not to, that this was their consequence. I left the business in March of this year. I went back to my job in digital marketing, where I now make like $100,000 a year and work 40 hours a week instead of 70. My family doesn't talk to me except my mom, who occasionally sends me text messages like, "I hope you're happy with what you did," or "Your dad is so disappointed." I blocked my dad and Uncle Frank on everything. Tyler, from what I heard, was named CEO in April, and apparently he's doing exactly what you'd expect. Basically undoing everything I built because he doesn't understand why it worked in the first place. Last week, I ran into one of the former managers at the supermarket, and he told me the business is going downhill fast under Tyler's leadership. They already closed another restaurant. The loyalty program is abandoned. Social media hasn't been updated in months. Sales are falling. The investor who bought my stake is apparently considering selling or closing everything, and I don't feel anything. Well, that's a lie. I feel relief. I feel peace. For the first time in my life, I don't have the burden of that damn business on my shoulders. I don't have to listen to my family telling me I'm not enough, while simultaneously exploiting me for everything I'm worth. People ask me if I regret leaving, if I miss the family business, if I plan to reconcile with my dad someday. And honestly, no. I don't regret it one bit. I spent 24 years of my life being used, and undervalued by people who were supposed to love me. 24 years thinking that if I worked hard enough, they would finally see and value me. 24 years being less important than my incompetent cousin just because his dad was more insistent or whatever it was. And now I'm free. I have a good job that appreciates and values me. I have real friends who respect me. I'm dating someone amazing who can't believe the stories I tell her about my family. And I'm building a life that's completely mine. The business will probably close completely in the next few years under Tyler. My grandfather's legacy, that legacy they used to manipulate me all my life, is going to disappear. And the thing is, it's not my fault. I gave them multiple opportunities to do the right thing. I offered them my skills, my education, my time, my loyalty. I even saved their business when it was dying. And they chose, consistently, again and again for decades, Tyler over me. That was their decision. Now, I have to live with the consequences, and I can finally live my life in peace without feeling guilty about putting my own needs first for once. And that, honestly, is enough for me.